This time, we're gonna talk about a video from International Passport, one of the channels, which was one of the reasons why I started doing video reviews of other content related to Japan. I'm not going to speak on all of his content about all over the world, but specifically on Japan, there's a bunch of stuff that he puts out that I disagree with. I did one video before. I'm going to do this one and breaking down stuff that he doesn't like about Japanese women. My opinion is straight from like ChatGPT, or I don't know where he got a lot of it from, but I'm going to give my 2 cents. There are 1 or 2 points that I do kind of disagree. I'll let you know what I think. I'll put some clips. We'll talk about it. We'll see what happens.
In this video, I want to break down a couple points that brothers need to be aware of about Japanese women. These are points that I've noticed, right? These are traits I've noticed with some Japanese women, a good amount of them. And based on my research, it's kind of a common thing in Japan.
So this guy's done some research, lots of research in his experience. Now, of course, he doesn't know anything about Japanese people, can barely speak any Japanese, came to Japan probably for like a couple of days, maybe even a week. And I don't know where he got the rest of his research from. So take that, one of the main things that I had to learn over the past few years is who do you listen to? Who do you take your information from? I'm not saying get your information from me. In my stuff, I'm telling you, I'm not the end all be all of everything Japan, especially related to women, but I do have 20 years of experience living here in the Tokyo area. I spent all of my 20s hanging out by myself, with my friends, solo, talking to chicks, wingman, talking to chicks with my friends, like stuff like that, married, XYZ, a lot of different stuff. So I think I'm a bit better qualified than him to give you, my 2 cents. But I appreciate him for making the time out to do this video so that we can kind of compare and contrast it and you can make your own decision. As always, I'll put his whole video at the end of this and in the comments, and you can, compare and contrast the two and make your own decision, what you think is best for you. But for me, I just want you to have a little bit more accurate information than what's going to happen, what you're going to see here based on his research, whatever that means.
So the first point I want to discuss, brothers, is Japanese women can be very two-faced, and that is a thing that's quite common in their culture. There's a term for it called hone and tataime, okay, but I'm going to break it down in English terminology. So what does that mean? It means that in relationships with Japanese women, they are very well known to hide their true feelings about things that they may not like in a relationship, or things that you may have done that may have upset her, but she won't tell you. So essentially, you're dealing with a woman that, not all women, but this is quite common in Japan, where she's putting on a facade, all right, to keep you happy, to make sure everything goes smoothly. But the problem with that, brothers, is that she's not telling you the truth, okay? So if there's a problem in the relationship or marriage, you won't get the truth out of her, okay? And that is very bad for a relationship.
Hone and tataime. It's hone and tatemae. Hone means like your true feelings, and tatemae is the face you put on things. But if Japan is more of a culture based on what you putting on not only Japanese women, but just the culture of Japan in general. It's not like outwardly showing displeasure or outwardly disrupting the atmosphere of something. So even if you're not really pleased about a certain situation, you're not to say like I like this or I don't like this, or get angry openly. The other person is basically supposed to pick up on your atmosphere and understand by context or by implied kind of atmosphere of what's really going on. And some people do hide their true intentions or things like that to match the situation, to not disturb the atmosphere of what's going on. But they're not really doing it to be two-faced, if you will. They're trying not to cause any ripples in the force or any ripples in the water, if you will. They're trying to just keep the peace, keep everything going smooth. And in Japanese society, sometimes that does work. It works out to a negative in everything. But the reason why a lot of guys, in my opinion, don't really have difficulties because they're not able to read the atmosphere of Japanese people or read the atmosphere of what a Japanese woman is actually thinking when she's upset, when she's frustrated, when something is bothering her. Again, I had to go through this several years of my life as well. My first like 10 years or so in Japan, there was a lot of situations that I really wasn't able to pick up on. It still happens to this day. It's still, I think, a never-ending process because I'm not a Japanese person. But that doesn't mean that Japanese people are two-faced. I say in many situations, Japanese people are actually a lot more honest than foreign people. Because if you think of Western people, let me say that, if we kind of openly lie with our words, but a lot of times you can kind of pick up things that Japanese people are saying with their body language, their atmosphere, even like a small or a look or a small twitch or movement or something like that tells a lot about what a person is thinking. But if you're not able to pick it up, then you're just completely oblivious. And I think that's how he was in his time in Japan. He might have dated a few chicks, he might have gone out a few matched or whatever, I don't know, but it didn't really work out and he really didn't understand why. He was like, she was laughing and loving it, and then she just disappeared.
It is very common for Japanese women to just end things, and you try to get the answer out of her. Listen, what's going on? It was going well, why did you end it? She won't tell you the truth. She will keep her true feelings to herself. Brothers, be very careful when dealing with Japanese women like that.
Now, I think this is another point that's really, a tough point for all international relationships in general. If you think about what he's saying, in a way, it kind of makes sense that, yes, there are some things that she's holding in, but she's not. And he said, like, communication, you should be able to communicate openly. But one thing that he didn't say, and that you might not think about, is that communication should be open, but what happens if on her side she can't communicate openly with you because you can't understand things from her perspective? So we're only, us in Western society, again, I'm not bashing Western people, I'm just telling you, it's something I deal with that if you're dealing with Japanese people, you have to understand that we kind of are more self-centered and we deal with things from our perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm trying to communicate with you, why aren't you communicating with me? But I'm only communicating from my side, the way I think we should communicate. You're not able to understand and read the tea leaves on how she thinks you should communicate or how she is used to communicating. So of course she's going to just hold it in and give up and be like, all right, whatever. Now, in general, there are also, I've talked about in several videos, several different expectations that are, standard here in Japan. And being in an international relationship, for a lot of different reasons for many people, you might not be able to fit that mold. So, she might have to handle or deal with that however she can. And it might be a bit more than she can handle, but you need to understand that it's not just she's just holding it in, not saying anything just because she doesn't feel like it and she wants to be two-faced and shady. She might not be able to. She knows that she might not be able to understand it. She might be coming to the realization that what her subconscious perception of the way a relationship should go isn't really working out that way, and it becomes stressful for her. So it's not as simply cut and dry as he's trying to make it seem. Like she just won't talk and say whatever, you communicate because she's just holding it in and being shady. It's not really that simple.
So my advice for you brothers is that before you get into a relationship with a Japanese woman, let her know that you're very aware of this two-faced culture in Japan. Is called hone and tataime. Okay, tell her that when you're gonna date me, I need you to express your true feelings. Don't keep it in and don't pretend. I have personally gone through that myself in the UK when I was dealing with a Japanese chick, and she was just, something was wrong that she didn't like, and she would just keep it in until she just had enough. All right, and I finally got the truth out of her, and I'm thinking, why didn't you tell me? Okay, so brothers, be very, very careful there.
this is terrible advice. Like, of course, if you tell her, okay, just tell me how you feel, she'd be like, okay. It doesn't really work like that. And yeah, I was kind of getting the sense that he's kind of butthurt about something. And I don't know if this is a real story or not, but, he maybe feels a certain way because a Japanese girl he dealt with in the UK, and she wasn't really completely upfront with him. He didn't really say what the issue was. It might have been like she really wasn't feeling him like that or something. I don't really know what the issue is, if it's a real story or not. But yeah, he's got some issues that went on with him and why he feels like that. But it's not because of Hone and Tatemae. That's a completely different issue than what he's talking about.
The second point that I dislike about Japanese women is that when you get married to one, it's very common that she will take the man's salary. It's very common in Japanese culture and customs. I disagree with that, and there have been problems between Western men and Japanese women in terms of the Japanese woman demanding that the Western husband gives her his salary because it's what she's accustomed to in her own family history. Her mom did that to her dad, etc., and it's very well known in Japanese culture. That's a point that I disagree with, and that's something that I can't get down with. But it's very common in Japan for it to be that way. Once again, brothers, you got to make it very clear. If you want me to wife you up, Japanese woman, that ain't happening in our relationship, brothers. You do not want your woman, your Japanese wife, to take your salary because it's quite common in Japanese culture.
Okay, this is some more Wikipedia Japanese culture from this guy. Let me give you a little background on this because it was a little bit confusing for me when I first came to Japan as well. This was a traditional thing for Japanese women who were housewives, where the husband went to work and the wife stayed home and took care of all the affairs in the house. So I've talked to Japanese guys as well, basically about this. They do that basically because in their mind, like dealing with all the small bills, groceries and things like that, it's kind of small scale issues that they just hand off to their wife. And yes, their wife does give them pocket money and things like that, whatever their budget is and that they use freely. Of course, this also depends on the economic power of the guy. If he's maybe a higher level earner or things like that, he'll give her probably however much money she needs to cover the expenses, and then he'll probably keep or invest or whatever everything else. It is kind of my image of it. And from what I've heard from Japanese people, but it's not like he's just like, okay, here, take everything, and she's like, and especially now in modern times where both couples work or things like that, it's much more of a shared kind of thing where, okay, I'll pay this, we'll pay this, similar to what it probably is in your home country. But that whole giving your whole salary over to your wife, and then just getting a little bit is basically if she's generally a housewife and he's like a seishain kind of company guy who's, think about it, he's not in the house all the time. He's coming back late at night, maybe 9-10 o'clock at night on most weekdays. So he doesn't have time to go grocery shopping. She doesn't have time to really, pay bills and do all those things. So he's just leaving it to her and telling her, okay, you micromanage all the small everyday stuff in the house. I'll work and pay the bills and then just give me the money that I need. And then they did it that way traditionally. But it's not really like for younger generations of Japanese people, I have not heard that really going on with anyone under like 40 or 50 years old.
Another point that I believe passport bros must be aware of with Japanese women, and it's something that I don't like about them, is that Japanese women are extremely sensitive. What does that mean? So when I say sensitive, I'm applying this to the early stages of dating. So the first date, second date, third date, or third dates, right? So if you say something that she may not like, or you do, and the average person would agree that it was very small, it's nothing, I guarantee you will never see that Japanese girl again. Something like, maybe you didn't iron your shirt, right? Or maybe you said a joke that she didn't like, or maybe you suggested some improvements to something about her that she took offense to, but the average person would be like, that's nothing. That was a funny joke or whatever. you won't see her again. They are very sensitive, in that early stages of dating.
Again, I think he's dealing with a little bit of trauma from like an interaction with a Japanese girl in his home country or something. You didn't iron your shirt, because ironing your shirt is kind of a really specific complaint, and I really think like that's probably what it was. The girl he was dating or whatever was just like, she didn't like this and like this and like this about him. But remember, how you present yourself in Japan is very important, and it shows like who you are outwardly. So yeah, coming up with like a wrinkly shirt, or like trying to tell sarcastic jokes that are not really that funny, that she doesn't get, approaching her in the way that you would, a girl in your home country, probably didn't work for him. He probably wasn't smooth enough to pick up on the signs if this was a real situation. But the ironing the shirt thing makes me tells me that this was actually something that happened to him that made him really butthurt. And so he just like pigeonholed all Japanese girls by it. Like he just got dumped, and she just probably dissed him and like ghosted him or something like that. And he was like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like that's kind of what I'm sensing a little bit, because ironing your shirt, like that really doesn't make sense. Let me know with the comment if you're agreeing or disagreeing with me or whatnot.
Another very important point that I have to point out about Japanese women that I definitely don't like is that the vast majority of Japanese women are atheists. And that could be an issue if you're a religious brother that believes in God, you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, and you want to date a Japanese woman. It is very, very likely that the Japanese woman that you're considering will be an atheist. She doesn't believe in a higher power.
This part, I can agree with him on that. Like, I wouldn't say atheist, like not believing like there is no God, but generally Japanese people, I'd say the majority are not highly religious. I have met, several Christians, there are other different groups of Christianity, Buddhist, Shinto, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are several different religious groups, but in general, Japanese people are not religious. So I do agree with him on that. If you are particularly religious and you do want to share your faith with your partner, you might have a few obstacles with that. My perception of it is like, in general, again, Japanese people think of any type of like strong religious faith as kind of like brainwashing, as if you will, or overly trying to control or influence people by like some type of authority. Don't really like it. Again, it's kind of more of like like a flat society where it's just kind of like people do what they do naturally, like an ant colony kind of thing. So any stronger centralized power, people kind of are a little bit wary of in modern society. I don't really know where it comes from. I don't really know in too much detail, but I do very much probably 100% agree with him on this point.
One other point that passport bros must be aware of with Japanese women is that they are very prideful. Now, Japan as an overall country is a prideful country and culture. Japan first in many aspects of their society. But you would think that it is mostly the men that have that Japanese pride. Nope, wrong. Japanese women are very prideful. And when we apply that pride to a relationship or marriage sense, right? If she leaves you, right? If she wants to get a divorce, if she wants to break apart from you in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, she will never come back. There's too much pride for her to come back into a relationship. She may want to come back. She may have, thought to herself, hey, I did the wrong thing there. I want to get back with, she wants to get back with the guy, right? But she will never do it because of that pride they have.
I think it's the opposite. Like, it sounds like his pride got hurt, and whatever that Japanese woman did to him, like it messed him all the way up. I would say like Western people are much more prideful than Japanese people. Japanese people, again, I'm not like on either side of this equation, but I do think, when our ideology gets challenged a bit more, we kind of, push back on it, especially if we're not used to that. Japanese people are a little bit more non-confrontational in that sense, generally speaking. So, of course, some people do have those points where if you hit it, it will come out. But this sounds like it's just whatever that girl did to him. I do think it's a real story now. Like, she just messed him all the way up. He tried to get back with her and she was just like, I'm not having it. You didn't iron your shirt. Like, and she just like hung up the phone on him or something. I don't know what happened to this guy, but yeah, it's something.
So the last point that I know passport bros must be aware of is the huge cheating culture in Japan, right? And unfortunately, there are some Japanese women that do cheat on their boyfriends and husband. So gotta be very careful there. Watch your girl very carefully, vet her before making it permanent, and even confront her about, listen, there's a cheating culture in Japan, and let her know that that's not happening in your relationship.
Not that like the cheating is rampant and stuff like that, but just like, I've seen or heard, like, because Japanese women generally do have like a poker face on that type of thing. But my advice is, if you don't want her to cheat, be a good guy, take care of what you gotta take care of and put it down in the bedroom, man. Like, this is whole like passport bro kind of thing. Again, I'm not mocking it if you're really buying into it, but if you're in that super kind of macho category and you can actually put it down in the bedroom and you do it on a regular basis, you don't have anything to really worry about. If you're taking care of like the home, you're taking care of your finances, and you're taking care of the bedroom, she has no reason to. If anything, she'll be all over you because you're giving her what she needs. So I don't really, subscribe to that. Like, they're like running around all over the place. Like, I don't think so. If anything, I'd say like when that goes out of the marriage or in a early stages of relationship, maybe, yeah, she might get a wandering eye. But I mean, I think every guy should be competent in that area, competent enough where, they can get a girl hooked on the magic stick, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think that's necessarily true. And if you are concerned about that, brush up on your skills in that area, because definitely I can say if you are competent in that area, you'll be fine. And if you want some more advice about how to do that, I got this video right here, and I think it'll help you out.